Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the Global Heatmap 3, our weekly roundup of important global and strategic issues. This is your host today, Major General Jagatbir Singh, retired. It is indeed a privilege and honor for me to be with you today to discuss certain important issues that have taken place in the last week. The first being the Israel-Hezbollah standoff, like you're seeing, large number of attacks taking place, including the unprecedented pager and walkie-talkie attacks, followed by numerous rocket attacks. Thereafter, I'll discuss the Prime Minister's visit to United States, which included his attending the Quad Summit, as well as his meeting with President Joe Biden, which will probably be his last meeting with the outgoing President Joe Biden. The third issue I'm going to discuss is the Manipur violence which is taking place, and this is particularly in the limelight post the interview given by Lieutenant General P.C. Nair, who recently retired as the Director General of the Assam Rifles. And he has given a very detailed interview listing out all the problems of Manipur and the challenges faced by the Assam Rifles and the allegations against the Assam Rifles, which are coming up where the force is doing an extremely difficult and delicate task in a very important region of our country. And the last issue I'm going to discuss is Bangladesh, wherein the head of the interim government or the advisor of the interim government, Muhammad Yunus, is asking for loan from the World Bank and other financial institutes to the region of $8 billion. And he's also recently gone to New York, where he's attended the addressed the United Nations General Assembly. And on the sidelines, he's met few leaders, including the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. So I'll discuss these four issues with you today. The first issue, of course, is the Israel-Hezbollah standoff. As you're all aware, a series of devastating explosions across Lebanon left over 500 dead and over 3,000 injured. Before this, on 17th and 18th September, normal, ordinary devices which are used, and in fact outdated devices such as pagers and walkie-talkies, were weaponized and used to target Hezbollah operatives across Lebanon, and thereafter, which again left large number of people injured. Apart from this, there have been rocket strikes which killed Ibrahim Akil, the head of an elite unit, as well as Mohammad Kabasi, the commander of Hezbollah's missile and rocket force. Now, what are the implications of these electronic attacks for future warfare, and how exactly this transpired? It wouldn't have happened immediately. There are large amount of news in the press regarding this. I've also written a couple of articles on this, including one that has been published in the First Post and one in the Sunday Guardian, in which I've said that there's danger of supply chains being attacked, and there's issues of compromises which have taken place within the procurement process of the Hezbollah and the manufacturing process of these devices, and these explosives were planted in them. Thereafter, there are talks about how these were initiated, and all the fingers point towards the Israeli unit, which is the 8200. Now, the violent choreography of incremental escalation and calculated strikes which are taking place between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon may no longer be sustainable. Now, Hezbollah doesn't represent the complete polity of Lebanon. Lebanon is a sharply divided country which has Christians and Muslims, Muslims being both Shias, Sunnis as well as Druze, and Christians being also spread from Maronites to Protestants to Radicalites and the Orthodox Church. So it's a mix of this, and it's got a strange system of representation which they call the confessional system. So, that is the way it inherited this in 1943. Of course, there was a civil war which finished thereafter, and after that there was an agreement held in Saudi Arabia known as the Taif Agreement, after which there was a redistribution of seats. But suffice to say that Hezbollah is a political party as far as Lebanon is concerned, and they have representation in that. But the Hezbollah, Houthis and Hamas are the proxies of Iran. Now this trouble started on 27 July when a Hezbollah rocket attack killed 12 Druze children playing in a soccer in the Israeli town of Majad Shamas, which is in the area which is in the north of Israel near Golan Heights. And Israel responded by targeting the Hezbollah second in command, Fawd Shukur, in a residential building in Beirut. And if you recall that these two attacks took place close to each other when they targeted Fawd Shukur in Lebanon and they targeted Ismail Hanif in Tehran. Now, at first, very little seems to have changed because Israel used precision weapons against Shukur to minimize collateral damage. But thereafter, they also struck a military site in Israel. And Hezbollah's response signaled a limited willingness to escalate. Yet, in the recent weeks, the IDF strikes and targeted assassinations have been occurring at a pace and scale that indicate a higher risk tolerance and a readiness to enter a new phase of conflict with the Hezbollah. Now, back-to-back operations, which I talked about on 17th and 18th, with pagers and walkie-talkies, and incidentally, the walkie-talkies first exploded when the people were going for the funeral of those who had died in the pager explosion. Now, that left 30 dead, thousands injured. And though the operation was designed to limit civil casualties, since only the Hezbollah operatives would have been using these walkie-talkie devices, though of course the Iranian ambassador also had one, and that also exploded, and there are reports that he's lost his eye. But on 20th September, Israel executed another targeted assassination strike on a group of elite Hezbollah forces which were meeting in a residential building in a Beirut suburb. And there were 30 people dead. Now, the two sides now appear locked in an upward military spiral, but both would lose more than they would gain if there's a full-scale war. Israel's leaders, of course, are jubilant about the progress of the offensive against Hezbollah. And the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, did not hold back his praise when he said after Monday's airstrikes that today was a masterpiece. This was the worst week that Hezbollah has had since its establishment, and the results speak for themselves. Israel believes that the ferocious offensive will coerce Hezbollah into doing what it wants, that is, inflicting so much pain that its leader, Hassan Nasrallah, and his allies and backers in Iran decide that the price of resistance is too high. But there is no doubt that Israel and its generals, who are locked in a battle with Hamas, need a military victory. But Hezbollah is far better armed and far better organized than Hamas, which Hamas is actually pushed into a corner in Gaza, because one side is the sea, one side is Israel, and one side is a little bit of territory with Egypt, where the Egyptians are not allowing the Palestinians to move into Israel. Whereas, as we've seen in the earlier war with the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the borders for sustenance of the Hezbollah are through Syria. The Hezbollah is far better armed than the Hamas. So it's not going to be that easy. The Israeli Defense Forces and Mossad have been planning this war against Hezbollah for a long time, after the last war ended in a stalemate in 2006. But the attacks no doubt raise serious concerns regarding the security of manufacturing plants and a larger complicity which will particularly affect those countries that rely more on imported components from manufacturing plants where security concerns loom. As I said earlier, supply chain attacks will now be a concern in the security world as hackers gain process and access to products while they are in development. Hardware supply chains are far rarer as they involve getting hands on the components. These attacks are unprecedented in the use of technology, scale and nature, and are a harbinger of modern-day warfare and marks a new phase in technological warfare that is acquiring a form of its own. Israel wants Hezbollah to stop firing rockets and wants its 60,000 personnel people who were displaced after 7th October to return to their lands. At the same time, the Israeli military says the plan is to force Hezbollah back from the border and to destroy their military facilities that threaten Israel. But recently, in fact today, the US, EU and several Arab countries have called for a ceasefire in Lebanon, which is termed as an important breakthrough. The aim is at avoiding a wider conflict. Lebanon and Israel are expected to decide within hours whether to accept this or not. But a US official said, "We have had the conversation with the parties and felt this is the right moment." Are Israel and Hezbollah escalating towards a catastrophe? And there is no doubt the world needs to avoid and avert a larger war that is not in anybody's interest.